Shalawam, Shalawam. This is Hadassah Bathsayawan coming back to you with part 4 of our big lesson called Our Covenant. And this is a very, very important lesson, and this is why I put so much effort into it and pulled out all the scriptures that you need to confirm what I'm telling you about our covenant. And today we're going to look at what was the old covenant and what is the new covenant. Now, before I get started, I want to apologize for the buzzing sound in the background. That is my fan running to keep me cool and keep the computer cool. Otherwise, the fan in the computer is going to come on and it's going to be a worse noise than just the fan in the background. So I hope it's not too much of a distraction. And yeah, let's get started with part 4 of our covenant. Now, in previous lessons, we had looked at from the very beginning all the way through to Abraham, all the way through to the children of Yashraal leaving Matzarayim, which is Egypt, to coming to the wilderness to receive the commandments, the laws, the statutes, and the judgments, which are the conditions in order to keep the covenant, right? I mean, today there are many people that would tell you, well, you don't need to observe all of the commandments or all of the laws or all of the judgments because Hamashiach came and he fulfilled them. Yes, he came to fulfill them, but he never said to stop practicing them. He never said to stop walking in them. As a matter of fact, he said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Now, does that sound as if he wants you to stop keeping the commandments? Then they go to the other extreme where they say, well, the Apostle Paul said that we're on the law. We're not on the law, we're on the grace. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, two things: I do not subscribe to the epistles of Paul. I don't even bother reading them because they are contradicting the law. They're contradicting the word of the Most High if you really read them. But people try to justify Paul by saying, well, we don't really understand what he's saying. Well, if he is so complicated, why does he have to be so complicated for us to understand him? Right? He's not speaking in parables, right? It's not that he is too complicated for us to understand. It's because what he's saying contradicts the word of the Most High. And when you look at the word of the Most High, when you look at his laws and his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, and then you look at the teachings that this Paul has or have, right? There's a contrast, right? They are opposing each other. He does not support the laws and the statutes and the judgments. Oh, well, because Paul was dealing with the Gentiles and so on and so forth. You know what? It doesn't matter because it's not one law for Yashraal and another law for the Gentiles. If the Gentiles want to be a part of Yashraal, they have to obey the same laws that we have to obey. So every argument that these people, right, can come up with is all moot. Moot, because at the end of the day, Allah Hayam, Yahweh Allah Hayam, he is one of covenant. And his covenant is governed by these laws, statutes, and commandments, and his judgments. And if we're not upholding them, then we're not in covenant with him. And if we're not in covenant with him, then we are facing his wrath just like the rest of the people in this world. That's the end of it. That's the beginning, the middle, and the end of it all. And all I'm doing right now is giving you scriptures and some of the pieces that well, I don't really want to call them scriptures, but I've taken some excerpts from the Apocrypha to help confirm what the scriptures are saying. Sometimes the historical books give you a deeper understanding because there's much more written in there. And it doesn't contradict what is written in the Bible. So that's why I include them in my work here. Okay, so let's get started. When Alahayam brought the children of Yashara'al out of the house of bondage, which is Matsarayam, Egypt, he brought them first through the waters of the Red Sea as a type and shadow of water baptism. Right? That's why we need to be water baptized. When we come into the knowledge of who we are, the old man is submerged and the new man comes up out of the water. We are now a new creation. And that's just the first part. Next, he led them through his mountain where he wanted to establish his laws, statutes, judgments, and commandments with them. But they sent Masha up the mountain instead to bring them all that Yahweh wanted them to observe and to do. They didn't want to go up to the mountain because they were full of idolatry. And when he told them, sanctify yourself 3 days, they just washed their bodies and washed their clothes, but they didn't deal with what was in their hearts. And that's why they knew, based on the fright that they had, that if they had gone anywhere near that mountain or even touched it, they would have been struck down because of the idolatry. That mountain was made holy when the Most High came down upon it. So they sent Masha up because they knew they would have been killed. And then they agreed that they would obey all his laws, statutes, commandments, and judgments, making them his holy people. And he will be their Alahayam. That's the covenant. Once Yashara'al agreed to keep Alahayam's laws, statutes, commandments, and judgments, Masha proceeded to sprinkle the book of the covenant and the people with the blood of an animal to bind the agreement. It was all done with blood. Alahayam also provided the children of Yashara'al cleansing rituals and animal sacrifices that they were to observe to maintain their holiness while he was in their midst. He knew that they were a rebellious people. Nevertheless, he established these sacrifices and rituals as a temporary measure to allay his wrath, while at the same time cleansing them from their sins. They needed to be cleansed. They needed to be atoned. He set his tabernacle in the center of their camp and established the tribe of Levi, which is Levi, as his priesthood. Ahawaran and his sons were the chief priests, Ahawaran being the high priest. There were 4 components that activated the old covenant. Number 1, there was a tribe called Levi, which is the tribe of Levi, set apart for the work of the priesthood, including the high priest. 2, there was a tabernacle built according to the tabernacle that Masha saw in heaven. Yahweh recorded his name on this earthly tabernacle, which meant that his presence was visibly there in the form of in the form of pillar of cloud by day or a pillar of fire by night. In the promised land, he appeared to Shalawam, who is Solomon, and the people when Shalawam dedicated a temple. Now, I want to pause here because, in the church, how they love to tell you, oh, I feel the presence of God in the house. Jesus is here. This is his house. But yet they run the church like a corporate business. He did not build that temple. That temple was a building. That church was a building that was either rented or built by the people who are the congregation of the church and the leaders. Yahweh has not recorded his name there, so therefore he is not there. When he comes to the place, he comes in with the people. Our bodies is the perfect temple, not made with hands, that he wants to dwell in. So when we turn up at these buildings, we're the ones who's bringing the presence of the Most High. He's not already there waiting for us. That's why all these wicked things happen in the church. That's why you can have two men living in an abominable lifestyle, or two women, or you have a leader sleeping around with the congregation, male and female. That's why these things can happen in the church, because if his presence was there, if that was truly his house, these things could not happen. Let me tell you how serious his tabernacle was. When the high priest had to go in fact, before the priest can go into the tabernacle, the first half of it, they had to make sure that they were cleansed and sanctified. When the high priest was getting ready to go into the most holy, or the holiest of all, the holiest, they call it the Holy of Holies, which is the place where the Ark of the Covenant, the presence of Allah was there. He dwelt above the two angels, above the mercy seat. And when he went into, I'm speaking of the high priest, when he entered into the Holy of Holies, they had to tie a rope around his waist, because if he was not right in his heart, if he did not do the correct cleansing rituals before he entered in, or if he acted presumptuously, he would be struck down. And do you think they can go in there to claim his body? No, because they would be struck down too. So the rope around his waist is in case he got struck down, they could just drag him out. That's the presence of the Almighty. That's the presence of Shaddai. When Solomon, dedicated the temple that he built, when he was finished dedicating it, the cloud, the glory of Allah came down, that not even the priests can stand up. They had to be on their faces. When Dawad, the father of Shalawam, wanted to build the temple for the Most High said, no, you can't. You got too much blood on your hands, son. But your son, he can build it for me. And the most that he could do at that time is to get all the materials and put it aside for his son Shalawam to actually build the temple. This is how serious this business is. So you hear these people talking about, oh, this is the house of God. Yes, it's the house of your God. But it is not the house of Allah, because his name is not recorded there. He is not there. He did not build that church. He did not build that building, that structure. And when he builds his tabernacle, it is according to his specifications, not yours. That's the big difference. So when you enter into these churches and they're telling you, oh, the presence of God is here, Oh, and then they start calling on the Shekinah, which again is demonic. Shekinah is a pagan goddess. There's no such thing as Shekinah glory, except for the pagans that worship it. And you hear all these pastors with these fancy words, and you jump on board, and you don't even know who you're calling on. And that's why we as people, especially his people, his chosen people, we have the worst fights, warfare going on in our lives. It pleases the enemy, Satan, when we call on his name thinking it is Allah. It pleases him because he comes by invitation. We're inviting him to come. And then you say you want to be in covenant with Jesus Christ. Well, guess who you're in covenant with is Satan. Because our Savior, his name is not Jesus Christ. That's a pagan god, a Canaanite god that was created. Created by man, the Canaanites. And then the Romans and all the different ones, they use all these different pagan gods from way back, and they just give them different names. But if you go and you look to the root of a lot of these names that you call on, you're going to find that they were used many, many, many years ago. Even the word Christian was used not as, because they describe it, the church described it as being followers or disciples of Christ. But that's not what a Christian is back in the day, back in way back, thousands of years ago. They were pagan worshippers. And they were called Christians before Christ came on the scene, if you want to go that route. Right? So you're putting yourself in covenant with demons. And that's why your life is the way how it is. You're trying very hard to change the word to suit your lifestyle. Because the devils that be have convinced you that all these things that were done in the past are in the past. So now we have to deal with the present and the future. And there's a change. And there are changes. You don't need to uphold these things. Because we are living in modern times. Those are the ancient times. So you're convinced that you need to move up. Just like how this world has moved up with technology, but yet the people have regressed. You have technology that is so high, and yet the people have regressed. Some people can't think for themselves. They have to go to the computer or the iPhone or iPad. They have to go on the internet, is what I'm saying, to get basic information. They have internet thinking for them. They have Google and all these different apps thinking for them. They go on TikTok, they see who's saying this and who's doing what. And they want to do it too. Those have become the gods of today. Because those gods tell you what you should and should not do, what you can and cannot do, and why. Because when you look now at the laws and the commandments of the Most High, oh, those are antiquated. Those are old. It's not meant for us today. We're modern people. We got to move with the times. And look what's happening right now. Look, all you have to do is open your eyes and see what's happening right now. Are you moving with the times, or are they showing you how imprisoned you are by the same technology that you love? You're spiritually imprisoned, physically imprisoned. And pretty soon they're going to start chopping some heads off, because some people are not going to want to play by the rule book. It's going to happen. And the only way of escape is being in covenant with the right person. And that is Yahweh. So let me move on. So part 3. The book of the covenant and the people were sprinkled by the blood of an animal to seal the covenant between Elohim and Yashra'al. So it wasn't enough to say, yes, everything you tell us to do, we're going to do, and then that's it. No. What sealed it was the sprinkling of the blood of an animal. That sealed it between Elohim and his people. 4. There were animal sacrifices performed by the priests on behalf of themselves and the people. These animal sacrifices and meat offerings were detrimental to the cleansing, purification, and sanctification of the people of their sins. So, you want to be in covenant with the Most High, but you want to still live a sinful life, and you still want to carry on living and doing the things that you used to do. Can't happen. First, you need to be atoned. You need to be sanctified and purified. Because he cannot dwell in a vessel that is filthy. And he wants to dwell in us, and he also wants to dwell in our midst. And if we're not cleansed, if we're not sanctified, he cannot dwell inside of us. These 4 components were established by Yahweh under the leadership of Masha and Ahawaran. Anyone failing to keep his laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments, or his sacrifices or meat offerings were stoned to death or plagued. Yahweh was very serious about his laws, his statutes, his judgments, and his commandments. He's very serious about them, because they were there to help the people to live righteously and to live in holiness. And these laws all set us apart from the other nations. The other nations were living like harlots and doing all manner of wickedness that was contrary to these very same laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments. So when we break them, we're breaking covenant with him, and we're also reverting ourselves back to being a Gentile. It doesn't matter your bloodline. It doesn't matter what blood type flows in your vein. It doesn't matter your heritage, who you came from. If you're not keeping covenant with him, you are a Gentile. Shalawam, which is the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 3. And Masha went up unto Elohim, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the children of Yashra'al, You have seen what I did unto Matzarayim, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Yashra'al. And that is still relevant for us today. Once we are in covenant with him, we become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Verse 7. And Masha came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which Yahweh commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that Yahweh hath spoken, we will do. And Masha returned the words of the people unto Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto Masha, Lo, I come unto you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak to you. So they wouldn't say, these words are coming from you. These are just your words, Masha. We're not hearing anything. You're the only one hearing. But they can hear when Yahweh was speaking to Masha to prove to them that Allah was speaking to Masha and he was relaying the words to them. And they will believe you forever. And Masha told the words of the people to Yahweh. When he came down upon the mountain, the entire area shook. There was lightning and there was thunder and there was this trumpet blowing and the clouds and the shaking. He proved that he is the mighty Allah, that he really exists. He's not a statue. He's not a piece of stone or a piece of metal. He is living compared to the other idols. Let's go on. Verse 10. And Yahweh said unto Masha, Go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes. And be ready against the third day, for the third day Yahweh will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And you shall set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves that you do not go up into the mount or touch the border of it. Whosoever touches the mount shall be surely put to death. There shall not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, they shall come up to the mount, because he has his instructions that we must follow. He is not the horse. Sorry, he is not the cart and we're the horse. He's the horse and we're the cart. He's the one that is in charge. He's the potter and we're the clay. He makes the rules. We follow. That's why he said, only when you hear the trumpet sounds long, then you can come up to the mountain, because he has his specifications for them to come up to the mountain. Verse 14, and Masha went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day, come not at your wives. That means do not have sex with your wives. For 3 days. How many men and women can handle that? Especially if you are having, if your heart is not right before the Most High. If you have a idol or idols in your heart. If you don't want to follow the commandments and the laws, you will have a big problem with this. But if you love the Most High and you purposed in your heart to follow his commandments, then this is not a problem. This is what the Father said to do, and I will do it. We will do it, husband. And he will agree. He will say, yes, wife, we will do this. This is not a problem. But when you're driven by lust, it will be a problem, because that's an idol in your heart. It controls you. It tells you when, where, how, and sometimes with how many. And sometimes it doesn't even matter if you're married or not. So he said, do not come at your wives. No sex for 3 days. Verse 16. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount. and the voice of the trumpets exceeding loud, so that the people that were in the camp trembled. And Masha brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with Alahayam, and they stood at the lower base part of the mountain. Verse 18, and Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because Yahweh descended upon it in fire. That's his glory. Both the smoke and the fire is his glory. And the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace. So that meant it was going straight up. You know, have you ever seen a furnace and smoke coming from a furnace? It goes straight up to the sky. So that smoke was going way up. And the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Masha spoke, and Alahayam answered him by voice. And Yahweh came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mount. And Yahweh called Masha up to the top of the mount. And Masha went up. Verse 21. And Yahweh said unto Masha, go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto Yahweh to gaze, and many of them perish. And let the priests also who are to come near to Yahweh sanctify themselves, lest Yahweh break forth upon them. So you can't just march into the Most High's presence just like that. He would kill you. He is holy. He is so holy that his holiness will kill you if you are not holy. And that's why he was warning the people. Shalawam, book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 18 to 26. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. This is what sin does. When the Most High manifests himself to you, instead of going towards him, you want to remove yourself. You want to step away. When he starts to speak to you or bring correction to you, speak to you from his word or through another person, instead of listening, you take offense. You step back. Instead of embracing what is being spoken to you, you take offense. Or you become fearful. And you say, no, I don't want any part of this. This is too much for me. I remember one time some many years ago when I was in the church, and I was one of the leaders in the church, and when they had the prayer ministry time, the Most High was working with me. I know that for a fact. Because I saw things, and he spoke things through me to people that sometimes the people were afraid to come and talk to me. And then they will say to their friends, how did she know this about me? She's meeting me for the first time. And to be honest with you, I don't even recall what it is that I said to them. There was another time that I was sent to minister in a church. It was a very small church, nothing fancy. And I started ministering. I knew nothing about what was going on in that church. But then the pastor took offense, and so did his wife. Took offense, and some of the people in the church took offense. And luckily, and I was a brand new believer. I was only 1 year old spiritually, as a believer. And luckily, I had elders with me that came from my church. And the pastor of that church called my pastor to complain about me, that I was exposing their business before the congregation. And do you know, up to now, I don't even know what it was that I said. The pastor called, my pastor at that time, called the elders that were with me And the elders said they did not share anything with me. I knew nothing about what was going on. So the only conclusion that they can come to was that the Spirit himself was speaking through me. So what could they say to me about that? Nothing. At least they were smart enough not to get between the Most High and his business. But this is the Father working. When he works in you and through you, and he uses you to reach out to other people, they have a chance to draw near to him. But instead of drawing near to him, they draw back, because his word, his truth, is an inconvenience to them. Heaven forbid if they are provoked to righteousness. So these people, they stood afar off because they didn't want what was working, what was inside of them, to come out. They want to hold on to their idolatry and their wicked ways. Verse 19, and they said unto Masha, you speak to us and we will hear, but let not Alahayam speak with us, lest we die. That was the truth. Verse 20, and Masha said unto the people, fear not, for Alahayam is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not. Now that fear that Masha is referring to is not fright, but it is reverence. And the people stood afar off. It didn't matter what Masha said to them. I'm not giving up this idol. I'm holding on to my lust. I love lust. It makes me feel good. So they stood afar off, and Masha drew near unto the thick darkness where Alahayam was. Big comparison. Masha drew near to the darkness where, in comparison, they drew back. Are you drawing near to the Most High, or are you drawing back? As soon as you hear the word of truth, are you drawing near or being provoked to righteousness, or are you being pulled back by the darkness? I remember a while ago I had a conversation with a young lady. It was many years ago. And this is even before I discovered my true identity as part of Yashraal, of the tribe of Yehowadah, by the way. And in those days, I was looking for a church because I had to leave my church. I left my church 4 years after I started attending, every Sunday, and things weren't going well for the church and for me. So I left after 4 years. And for the next 15 years, it felt like, maybe even longer, I've been going from church to church trying to find another home, a place where I could worship, right? So one of these places that I attended was a very popular church. So many people. It was a massive church. And the pastor was a very popular pastor, obviously. People loved his preaching. But for some reason, it did nothing for me. When you put cotton candy in your mouth and it just melts away and then it's just sugar, but it has absolutely nothing else, no substance, nothing. Just a lot of hot air. So I met this young lady at one of my workplaces, and it just so happened that she was a believer, or she said she was, and she attended that same church. And I said to her, but how do you manage to sit under that pastor Sunday after Sunday, listening to his messages? Because there is really a lot of fluff. It doesn't convict you. All he focuses on is making sure that the people are happy. So he says the things to make them happy. He said to me, well, that's why I go to that church, because I don't want to feel conviction. I want to feel happy. And then I realized, okay, so there are two kinds of Christians. Back in the day when I thought Christianity was the true path. And I said, okay, there are those that want to be convicted so that they're provoked to righteousness. And then there are the ones that want to live in sin and be happy about it. So they'll go to a church where they're not convicted. And the reason why they're not convicted is because the Spirit isn't moving in that place. There are other spirits moving. Don't get me wrong. There are many spirits moving in these churches. But the Spirit of the Most High is not moving in that church. It's not moving amongst the leaders. And it's not moving amongst the congregation. And if you are one that has the Ruach HaKodesh dwelling in you in fullness, and you walk into a place like that, you will want to run. You will. And that's what I did. I could never finish a service in any of those churches. I'll spend 5-10 minutes and I just feel like I need to get out. I need air. And these people, sometimes they're jumping and screaming and waving their flags, the things that they love to do to make themselves feel like they're doing something and that there's a presence there. Yes, there's a presence there. It's called an unclean or unclean spirits. They're demonic spirits that are in there. So let's move on. 22. And Yahweh said unto Masha, thus shall you say unto the children of Yashrael, you have seen that I've talked with you from heaven. You shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall you make unto you gods of gold. I don't care if it's silver and I don't care if it's gold. Do not make any image to represent me, because you cannot see me. And if you cannot see me, how can you make an image of me? Verse 24, an altar of earth you shall make unto me, and shall sacrifice thereon your burnt offerings, and your peace offerings, and your sheep, and your oxen. In all the places where I record my name, I will come unto you, and I will bless you. So that's the only way that you will receive his blessing, when you do the things that he tells you to do. One, in all the places where he records his name. So the oxen, the sheep, and the goats, and the calves, and the different animals were sacrificed on an altar of earth. These are his specifications to show them you cannot make anything for me unless I give you the specific instruction and the skill to do it. Just like he gave the men the skill to make the tabernacle and the furnitures. So now he's saying, the altar of earth you will make unto me, because you can't make earth. It's already there. And he didn't want anything made of silver or gold to represent him. Verse 25. And if you will make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of cut stone. For if you lift up your tool upon it, you have polluted it, because you made it. If you cut it, that means that you made it. So now you can glorify it instead of him. Verse 26. Neither shall you go up by steps unto my altar, that your nakedness be not discovered thereon. He was very specific when it came to holiness. The priest had to wear shorts. They were like capris, I believe, like knee-length shorts, so that their nakedness will not be discovered. Shalawam 24, chapter 24, verse 1 to 18. And he said unto Masha, come up unto Yahweh, you and Ahawaran, Nabad, Abayahawah, which is Abihu. These are sons of Ahawaran, and 70 of the elders of Yashraal, and worship you afar off. And Masha alone shall come near Yahweh, but they shall not come near, neither shall the people go up with him. And Masha came and told the people all the words of Yahweh and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yahweh have said we will do. We are going to do it. And Masha wrote all the words of Yahweh and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill. When he said he didn't cut it with stone, he didn't cut the stone, he built it, he put it as a pile, stacked them, and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Yashraal. And he sent young men of the children of Yashraal who offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto Yahweh. Verse 6. And Masha took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that Yahweh have said we will do, and be obedient. Lip service. Verse 8. And Masha took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which Yahweh have made with you concerning all these words. And that blood came from the offerings of the oxen. That's why I have it in red highlight in that will be verse 5. Right? So the blood that he sprinkled on the people and on the book of the covenant came from the oxen that were killed. Verse 9. Then Masha went up, and Ahawaran, Nabad, and Abayahawah, and 70 of the elders of Yashraal. So they went up to the mountain. Verse 10. And they saw Alahayam of Yashraal, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of heaven in clearness. So he revealed something of himself, not the fullness, because if he did, they will all die, including Masha. So he revealed something of himself on that first level, where the Ahawaran, Masha, the two sons of Ahawaran, and the 70 elders were, and also you will know too that the servant of Masha, Yahawashawa'o, or we call him Joshua, right? He was also there. So they saw something of his glory. He revealed a bit of himself to these people. Verse 11. And upon the nobles of the children of Yashraal he laid not his hand. He didn't kill them, because they were walking in his instructions. They were obeying his commandments. Everything that he told them to do, they did. That's why he did not lay his hand. He did not strike them down. Also they saw Alahayam and did eat and drink. He fed them. And there was a reason why he fed them. Verse 12. And Yahweh said unto Masha, come up to me into the mount, and be there, and I will give you tablets of stone, and the law and the commandments which I have written, that you may teach them. Right? He already spoke the law, the 10 commandments to Masha, and Masha already relayed those 10 commandments to the people. Now he's going to get it written in stone. Verse 13. And Masha rose up, and his minister Yahawashawa'o, Joshua, and Masha went up into the mount of Alahayam. And he said unto the elders, wait here for us, tarry here for us, until we come again unto you. So don't move, stay here. And behold, Ahawaran and Ahawar, which is her, are with you. If any man have any matter to do, let him come unto them. So he left 2 leaders to take care of any problems that the camp would have. Verse 15. And Masha went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the glory of Yahweh abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the seventh day he called unto Masha out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of Yahweh was like devouring fire on top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Yashrael. So they can see and hear the rumblings and the trumpets. They can hear and see things happening on this mountain. Verse 18, and Masha went into the midst of the cloud and got him up into the mount. And Masha was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. And that's why they ate first. They ate and they drank because he knew that he was going to be fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. He didn't eat anything. In order for the people to go before Yahweh to receive his laws, commandments, judgments, and statutes, the people first had to be sanctified by Masha, washed themselves and their clothes, stayed away from their wives, all to be done for 3 days. Then after 3 days, they were to come up to the mountain to stand behind the boundary and wait for the trumpet to sound long. Then it was time to go up. However, they did not go up, but sent Masha instead. There were 3 levels of the ascent up the mountain. After the trumpet sounded long, Masha and his elders climbed the mountain, but they did not go to the top right away. They stayed on the first level where they saw Alahayam in his glory, and they ate and drank. Then Masha left his elders there and moved up. This is the second level. He waited there for another 6 days. And on the 7th day, Masha and Yahweh went before Yahweh at the top of the mountain. Now this is the 3rd level. Right? There were stages set for the people to come up to Mount Sinai, as we can see the stages that Masha took to get to the top of the mount, to receive the tablets of stone, not stones, the tablets of stone with the commandments, the laws, the statutes, and the judgments. Their eating at the first level was to preserve them for the 40 days and 40 nights, as they would have been without food and water. It would have been sufficient for them. Yashrael, as we know that Masha and Yahweh did not eat or drink those 40 days and nights when they went up to the top of the mountain. Yahweh understands that we are flesh and our flesh needs sustenance. Therefore, he gave them food and drink on the first level, preparing for the ascent to the top. So we're going to look at 1 Malach, which is the book of Kings 19 from verse 4 to 9. But he himself, this is Aliyah, the prophet Elijah, went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, "It is enough now, O Yahweh, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers." And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, an angel touched him and said unto him, "Arise and eat." And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baked on the coals and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid himself down again. And the angel of Yahweh came again the second time and touched him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights, meaning food. He went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights unto where? The same Mount Horeb where Masha was, the mountain of Alahayam. So when you're dealing with Alahayam, he can bring you into a fast for 40 days and 40 nights. We as people, our bodies need water. We need food. We can survive without food a long time, but we cannot survive without water for more than 3 days. But when Alahayam gives us his food and gives us his drink, we can survive for as long as we are in his presence. So when you are in his presence, you can survive anything because he is preserving you. Masha and his elders ate and drank on the first level of the mount to sustain their flesh for the 40 days and 40 nights that they were to spend on Mount Sinai. It is interesting to note that not only Elijah was fed food and water for a long journey that would take the same 40 days and 40 nights, but that journey was to Horeb, which we know is Sinai, the mountain of Alahayah. So the Masha and Yahawashawa'o did not journey for 40 days and 40 nights. They spent 40 days and 40 nights at the top of the mountain. But Aliyah journeyed for 40 days and 40 nights to get to Mount Horeb, which is Mount Sinai. So it's the same 40 days and 40 nights number. Okay? And he did it without food and drink. Ahawaran and the elders were instructed by Masha to remain where they were on the mountain until he and Yahawashawa'o returned to them, but they disobeyed and went down the mountain back to the people. Yes, they did. They felt that he was taking too long, so they decided to go down the mountain. And we see that rippling effect on the people. So, okay. These are the 10 commandments that Yahweh gave to Masha, written in stone by the finger of Alahayam. These 10 commandments, written in stone by the finger of Alahayam, signifies to us that these commandments cannot be altered. They are written in stone. They are fixed and permanent. Just like anything written in stone is fixed and permanent and cannot be erased or altered. He doesn't want them erased or altered. So we're going to look at Exodus 20, which is Shalawam 20 from verse 1 to 17. And Alahayam spoke all these words saying, I am Yahweh Alahayat, your Alahayam, singular, personal, who have brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. You were in slavery. The first law, you shall not have no other gods before me. He is a jealous Alahayam. He will not share his glory with another. So if you have other things that you worship, that you place ahead of him, and let me give you a primary example of this. You call yourself an awakened Yashrael. Don't want to use the term Hebrew Israelite. That's a cult, right? You are an awakened offspring of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So you know you need to keep Shabbat. But somehow, keeping Shabbat will be in conflict with your job. You can lose your job because you cannot work on Shabbat. So you say to yourself, well, the Father will excuse me because I need to make money so that I can pay my rent, my mortgage, or whatever, my bills. So I am going to keep Shabbat on the weekend because it's more convenient for me. So who is in control here? Are you obeying the Shabbat? Are you obeying the voice of Alahayam when he say you shall not work on Shabbat? Or are you going to obey the other voice that is speaking to you saying it's okay, it's all good? He will understand because you need this job. So your job, your career becomes your idol. There are other idols that you can have too. Money. Because you place more emphasis on money than you do on Alahayam. Your husband, if you're a woman, your husband becomes your idol. And if you're a man, your wife becomes your idol because you place them ahead of Alahayam. And I'll give you an example of this, but these people were not really believers per se. One was an Anglican, and the husband was an Anglican, and the wife was a non-believer. Yeah, and she was proud of it. And before he married her, he was the kind of person that will pray at night, right? Don't know who he was praying. I'm just giving you a story, all right? Just to give you an example of how idolatry can be so subtle but still very effective in our lives today. So he used to pray every night when he was a single man, but when he became married, she realized that he was still praying at night, and she commented about it. I mean, she's telling me, she told me this story. She laughed at him and said, who are you praying to? Why do you need to pray so much? And with that, he stopped. So who became his idol? Mind you, whether he was praying or not, he was still in idolatry. He just substituted one pagan god for another. But my point is that he was praying, and this woman stopped him from praying, so she became his delight, his idol. How many people that are in relationship and they call themselves true believers, and because they were awakened after they got married to this person, somehow things have changed in their relationship, and now you are in a predicament. Your wife or your husband does not share the same views that you have, even though they are at one of two things. Either you married out of your lineage, and even if you married in your lineage, they still don't share the same views. They don't have the same understanding because they're not awakened. And I've seen examples of that too. And now you, as an awakened person, whether husband or wife, you are now dealing with an unbelieving husband or wife. Now you have to ask yourself a question. Who is your Elohim? Is it your heavenly Father, Ha'aba, or is it your husband or your wife? Are you going to submerge yourself and your worship to Elohim in order to appease that man or that woman? Or are you going to stand your ground and say, listen, this is who I am today, whether you like it or love it, or you can leave? That is showing love for Elohim. And when you show love for Elohim, he can bring about changes in your relationship. He can bring about changes in that woman or that man. But when you submit to them and put them first, because you said, oh, this is my husband or this is my wife, and I have to take care of my marriage, then the Most High will step back and let the devils come in and make a mess of your relationship. And I've seen that happen. I've seen it happen. So the question is, who is your God? Or who are your gods that you are worshiping? Are you worshiping the gods of lust? That's another god. Or gods, there's many of them. Because they have you lusting out not only after flesh, but after money, greed, things, mammon. That's why we have some of our brethren out there trying to say that multiple wives is acceptable because our forefathers had multiple wives. That's lust. Now, please don't get me wrong and think that I am opposing marriages or I hate sex or anything like that. You know what I hate? I hate anything that goes against the word of the Most High. He created sex. Sex is not filthy, but it becomes filthy when you do it outside of the parameters, the perimeter that the Most High has given to us. That is what I oppose. So instead of it being a beautiful moment between a husband and a wife, a man and a woman who are married together, it becomes sinful. So you have to ask yourself, who are you worshiping right now? Whose commands are you upholding? That's a serious question. Some people worship their pastors. They worship the church that they go to, the ministries that they have. They worship themselves. I kid you not. All right, let's move on to number 2. You shall not make unto you any graven image or any likeness that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down yourself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh Alahayak, am a jealous Alahayam, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Now, added to that, we know the church loved to put up the cross and claim that this is the instrument upon which Jesus Christ, their Savior, died. And we know, if you're awakened, that he did not. First of all, our Savior is not Jesus Christ. Our Savior is Yahweh HaMashiach. That's who he is. That's his name and his title, HaMashiach. And he did not die on a cross. The cross is a pagan symbol. Look at all the pagan people out there wearing it. Sometimes they wear it right side up, sometimes they wear it upside down, because it's their pagan symbol that they worship. And now they have infiltrated it and infiltrated the church and brought it into the church. And now the church, oh yeah, this is the cross that Christ died, and we must bow down to it because that's what saved us. The cross didn't save you. HaMashiach delivered you. And if you look at the Egyptians, they call it the Ankh. What does it look like? Same thing. And some people have even gone as far as to show you that that cross, which you see sometimes they make it equal in length and height, in width and length, and it folds into a pyramid. Right? Or is it? Pyramid. It folds into a pyramid. And that's what they worship. They worship pyramid and they worship the cube. Cube is Saturn, by the way. And the visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me. I did a lesson on that. I'm not going to go into it. It's a bit too, well, you need to watch the lesson to understand what that statement means. But it's a very significant statement, right? So let's move on to 3. You shall not take the name of Yahweh Alahayak in vain, for many will not hold him guiltless. For Yahweh will not hold him guiltless that will take his name in vain. And when you hold his name in vain, when you call his name in vain, or you take the name of Yahweh Alahayak in vain, you make it empty and of no purpose. When you call on other pagan gods and say it is him, you're taking his name in vain. When you call on Jesus Christ and say Jesus Christ saved you and shed his blood for you, you're taking his name in vain. Even though it's Jesus Christ and it's not Yahweh Alahaya, it's still the same thing, because you cannot get to Yahweh Alahaya unless you go through the Son. You need the Son. Or you still say, this is the Father, God the Father that delivered me. You just took his name in vain. You made him empty. You took the glory that belonged to him and gave it to another. Verse 4. Remember Yawam HaShabbat, the day of the Sabbath, the Shabbat day, to keep it holy. How many people are keeping Shabbat? How many of our people are keeping Shabbat? Okay, there are quite a few of them that keep it on the Friday evening to Saturday evening. Some want to say, well, it's Saturday daytime hours from the morning to the sunset, sunrise to sunset. Many different variations of keeping Shabbat. But there is only one true Shabbat. And the one true Shabbat is from the evening of the 6th day to the evening of the 7th day. How many hours make up a day? 12 hours or 24? 24 hours make up a day. And if we're supposed to keep Shabbat for an entire day, excuse me, it does not mean that we keep Shabbat only in the daylight hours. That is so foolish. And the reason why men and women want to keep Shabbat only in the daytime hours is because nighttime they can go for a roll in the hay. Because you cannot have relation with your spouse during Shabbat, the full 24 hours. And some of you cannot hold off, not even for 24 hours, because you're driven by lust. And that's why you come up with this stupid, foolish, ignorant idea, because it's so preposterous to me. For you to think that a day is divided. When he says clearly in his word, even from the very beginning when he created the whole world and everything in it, the first day, the evening and the morning, right? And then when he goes in to explain to Masha, to teach the children of Yashrael, he clearly identified in one of the feast days that it is from the evening to the following evening. So why are you changing it? This is a clear example of people that want to change his laws that are written in stone because you want to satisfy your lust. You can't go 24 hours worshiping him. And when you lie next to your spouse, you can't say no. You don't want to say no. You don't want to ignore that tickle in the seat of your pants, whether male or female. Because you're driven by lust. You're not driven by the desire to worship him. And this is the stuff that makes me want to spit fire sometimes, when you see these people want to split the atom when it comes to the word of the Most High. It is very clear what it says. You have 6 days. You can go have sex all you want during those 6 days. That one day that he asks, that he wants you to spend time with him, you want to find ways, create little loopholes so that you can still have your cake and eat it too. He said to keep his day holy. He didn't say keep the daylight hours holy. But that's just part of the example of why some people want to change the Shabbat. They changed the Shabbat to mean Friday evening to Saturday evening because they work Monday to Friday. And that will accommodate their work week. But if you really go and find out what the true Shabbat is by looking at the book of Hanawah, the book of Enoch, you will realize it is always on the evening of the 6th day to the evening of the 7th day, and no other day. And our days, Yashraal days, are numbered. They're not worded. They don't have any names. The Gregorian calendar has names based on their gods. So are the months. Many of the months are named after their gods. Our days are numbered. They were never named. Our months have names. And when you have Shabbat on the 6th, on the evening of the 6th to the evening of the 7th, that makes up an entire day. And that becomes the 7th day, because the evening of the 6th is the beginning of the 7th day. And the evening of the 7th day is the ending of the 7th day. And that's a full cycle, day and night, actually night and day, of the Shabbat. And according to the calendar of Hanawah, it is not the same day. It's not the same. If you compare it to the Gregorian calendar, for example, you will not find a Shabbat every Friday and Saturday. Friday evening, Saturday evening. It will change each month because it's based on the moon. You have the new moon, which is when the moon has no light. When the first sliver is seen, that's the first day. And the evening of the 6th day from that day, it becomes the Shabbat. So certain times, maybe twice or maybe even 3 times in the year, you may have Shabbat Friday evening to Saturday evening. But the other times of the year, it is a different day. But people under the Babylonian system cannot uphold that calendar. They cannot uphold the calendar of Hanawah, because they will lose their job. So they uphold the calendar, the Gregorian calendar, which is celebrated, by the way, by the Jewish people in Israel. So they follow what the people in Israel are doing. Friday night, Friday evening to Saturday evening. That is not always our calendar. This month, the month of September, it was Friday evening to Saturday evening. Next month, the month of October, is going to be a different day, based on the Gregorian calendar. But based on Yahweh's calendar, let's call it that, based on Yahweh's calendar, it will always be the evening of the 6th to the evening of the 7th. And 7 days from that would make it the evening of the 13th to the evening of the 14th. And 7 days from that will make it the evening of the 20th to the evening of the 21st. And 7 days from that will make it the evening of the 27th to the evening of the 28th. Multiples of 7. But when you look at the Gregorian calendar and you're celebrating Shabbat, are there multiples of 7? Do you see 7, 14, 21, 28? No, you do not. You do not. So you're celebrating an unholy day and calling it a holy day. Let's move on. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is Hashabbath of Yahweh Alahayah. 6 days you have to do any and everything that you want to do within reason, because you can't do anything, right? and everything. You have boundaries, obviously. But the seventh day is for Yahweh Alahayak, your Alahayam, singular, personal. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger that is within your gates. If you have a friend spending the night with you, they have to keep Shabbat. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and the earth, the heavens and the earth, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed Yawam HaShabbat and hallowed it. Yawam HaShabbat is the highest of all the holy days. And Yawam HaShabbat is also part of our covenant, a major part of our covenant. And the reason why it is a major part of our covenant is because heaven celebrates Shabbat. And he made us a people after his own image to celebrate Shabbat with him. No other nation, no other peoples has he commanded to keep Shabbat with him. Only Yashrael, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. It is a blessed day. 5. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which Yahweh Alahayat gives you. Honor, respect your father and your mother. I know some people like to curse out their parents. They love to curse out their parents. They mistreat them. Is that honoring your father and your mother? No, it is not. And the same way how you treat your parents, your children are going to come along and treat you in the same way. And how could your days be long if you disrespect your parents? Verse 6, you shall not kill. And Hamashiach explained that killing is not only with a knife or a gun or, shedding someone's blood, but when you curse someone, you're spiritually killing that person. Verse 7, you shall not commit adultery. And you can tag in there fornication as well. Adultery is when two married people have sex with someone outside of a married person have sex with another person outside of their marriage. But Hamashiach went in and he taught as well that you don't even have to have sex with that person as long as you're lusting after someone outside of your marriage. Not saying that you're supposed to lust after your husband or your wife, because lusting is from the devil. But when you start to lust and you look upon another and you think, man, she looks so good or he looks so fine, there are some things that I would love to do with that brother. That's lusting. You're committing adultery because you are a married woman. When your eyes are placed upon someone else who is not your husband or your wife, you are committing adultery. Now we can get spiritual here too. When you worship another who is not Alahayam, you are committing spiritual adultery. That's why he used to call our forefathers harlots. So committing adultery is both physical and spiritual. Number 8, you shall not steal. That's self-explanatory. Verse 9, Number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Do not tell lies, in other words. Don't tell lies. 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Imagine the father has to tell us that. Nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is your neighbor's. In other words, you should not be lusting after what other people have. These are the 10 main commandments that show us how we are to live in this world, and we see how the people in this world live contrary to them. We see it as plain as day. People lusting after one another, sleeping outside, sleeping with someone outside of their marriage, stealing, killing, telling lies, disrespecting their parents, all manner of evil the people in this world are doing. And what these 10 commandments do for us as Yashraal, I mean in all 12 tribes now, it makes us a holy people and a righteous people before Allah Hayam, because we're walking in his commandments, we're walking in these laws. And he can then honor us and bless us. Even those who call themselves Hebrew Israelites break many of these commandments, and once again, they use the excuse of Paul's epistles to refute the significance and the importance of these commandments. But these were not the only commandments that were broken by our forefathers and us today. But we have broken his laws and his statutes and his judgments as well. Just like they did when they were living in the wilderness and in the promised land. When the elders came down the mountain against the advice of Masha, they set in motion certain events that shows us today who they Yashraal, considered was their real gods that delivered them. Right? Similarly, today, our brethren have taken gods of other nations and have declared them as their deliverer and Allah Hayam. You see, we are people that were created to worship. And if you're not worshiping Allah Hayam, you're worshiping a pagan god. Shalawam, chapter 32. This is the book of Exodus from verse 1 to 35. And when the people saw that Masha delayed to come down out of the mount, and the people gathered themselves unto Ahawaran and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as this Masha, the man that brought us up out of Matzarayim, we don't know what is become of him. And Ahawaran said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives and of your sons and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. Verse 3. And all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them unto Ahawaran. Verse 4. And he received them at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool after he had made it a golden calf, one animal. Now keep verse 4 in mind because we're going to revisit that. Verse 5. And when Ahawaran saw it, he built an altar before it. And Ahawaran made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to Yahweh. So they were calling the molten calf Yahweh. Breaking the first, second, let's go back. They were breaking the first, the second, and the third commandment right there on the spot. Let's see if they broke any more. Of course, they were committing adultery, verse 7, number 7. Yeah, that's it. They were breaking some laws there. And although they said, all that Yahweh tell us to do, we will do, and we will obey. And look what they did. Verse 6. And they rose up early on the morrow, the next day, and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. Now you think that they were just kind of like, oh yeah, let me just have a little party. No, no, no. They were reveling. Big time. A Brazilian carnival on steroids. If you ever seen the Brazilian festivals, half-naked woman, and now it has been spread even in the Caribbean. People walking around with nothing on and doing all manner of filthiness and wickedness in public. Because when you are invoking these evil spirits, they don't come in one or two. They come in the thousands, in the hundreds of thousands, and they provoke you to do all manner of wickedness that you ordinarily would not happen. You would not have done. And I know for a fact, I remember for the first time that I celebrated Halloween, I was not even a believer. I wasn't even a Christian, right? I was a young person, just out of college. And I wanted to celebrate Halloween because it came to the island. So I made myself a costume. And I made myself the most hideous costume. And it was a combination of, I can't even remember, was it? Oh, anyways. It was this crazy outfit with feathers and all kinds of, and I put makeup on my face and, the whole 9 yards. I made my costume from top to bottom. The only thing I didn't make were my shoes. Everything else I made. The clothes, the headdress. I didn't make the makeup, no. But anyways, I ended up going to this party. And from the moment I stepped in to that environment, I was transformed. I became a different person. And I was kind of marveling, but yet at the same time I was a little scared. Because I was normally a very, I'm the kind of person, if I go to a party, I like to sit and watch people dancing, and unless someone that I knew would ask me to dance, then I would, go and dance with them. But in this scenario, I was Miss Bold. I went up to people and I want to dance with you. That's all I did. Nothing more, nothing else. I was not that kind of person. But the boldness that I became, if I had anything else in there, I could see that whatever that would be manifesting 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times worse. Meaning, if I was a promiscuous person back in those days, sleeping around with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, I would have probably slept with 100 men that night. But that's when an evil spirit was trying to take over me. But I know the Most High, He had a hand on me even when I was still a sinner. Thankfully. But after that day, after that night, let me tell you something. I took that costume and I wrapped it up and threw it in the bag. Never to be seen again, and never, ever, ever to celebrate Halloween ever again. I didn't like who I became. I became this loud. And the thing is, I didn't even have a drink. I was just transformed. I was a different person. And I couldn't explain it, because one minute I'm this very shy person, and then now I'm Miss Bold. I'm going up to people, strangers, to go dance with them. When in fact before, Even if a stranger came and asked me to dance, I would be a little too shy. Unless I knew the person, then I would dance with them. But most of the time, I'm sitting back, nursing one drink for the whole night, watching people dancing. That was me. But this time around, I was having a ball. I was dancing all over the place. And I didn't like who I became. So that from that point onward, I said, never ever again will I celebrate Halloween. Will I ever put on a costume? Nothing of the sort. And I was a sinner. I was a young person. I wasn't even 20 yet. I was a very young person. But I understood that something took hold of me and changed me. So when you start to worship pagan gods, and especially knowingly, it was different when we didn't know that Jesus Christ didn't save us. That is a pagan god. He knew in a matter of time that he was going to awaken us to the reality of who he is, his real name. And now that we know, and we're still calling on that name, now he can step back and let the demons have a role, have it at you. And they will come at you and make your life a misery. And I've seen it. I have seen it happening even with friends. I say to them, listen, the name that you're calling is not the true name of the Most High. And yet things are happening in their lives spinning out of control and getting crazier and crazier by the day. And do you think that they would step back and say, okay, let me listen to what my friend is telling me and go that route and see if there's a difference? No. Everything is fine. You're not talking anything that I don't already know. And besides, the person that I am worshiping, he does everything for me and he's done many things for me. And yet their lives are falling apart. Their marriages are falling apart. Their relationships with their children have fallen apart. And that is not sufficient. They have sickness in their bodies. Right? But again, let's move on. Verse 7. And Yahweh said unto Masha, go get you down, for your people who you brought out of the land of Matzorayim have corrupted themselves. Yes, they broke 4 of the laws already. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I have commanded them. They have made them a molten calf and have worshipped it and have sacrificed thereunto and said, these be your gods, O Yashrael, which have brought you up out of the land of Matzorayim. What a slap in the Father's face after all that he has done for them, delivering them from the house of bondage. Then to create something out of gold. Second commandment, don't make any molten image, not out of silver or gold, unto yourselves. And they make a golden calf and call it Yahweh. And say that he's the one, this calf is the one that delivered us from Matzorayim. Verse 9. Yahweh said unto Masha, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people, and we're still stiff-necked people. We have not changed. Verse 10, now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make you a great nation. And Masha besought Yahweh al-Hayam, his al-Hayam, and said, Yahweh, why does your wrath wax hot against your people, who you have brought forth out of the land of Matzorayim with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should Matzorayim speak and say, for mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath and repent of this evil against your people. Now he's not commanding the Most High. He's making a very good point. And that point came from Allah Hayam himself. That wisdom came from Allah Hayam. It didn't come from Masha. Masha was just mouthing the words that was placed in his heart. And then verse 13, remember Abraham, Yitzchak, excuse me, and Yashraal, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And Yahweh repented of the evil which he thought to do unto this people. Verse 15, and Mashah turned and went down from the mount, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both their sides. On the one side and on the other were they written. Verse 16, and the tablets were the work of Alahayam, and the writing was the writing of Alahayam. So he cut the stone tablets, and he also wrote on the stone tablets and graven upon the tablets. So and the writing of Alahayam, it was graven upon the tablets. Verse 17, and when Yahweh, which is Joshua, heard the noise of the people as they shouted, now they were having a ripe old time, weren't they? And said unto Mashah, there is a noise of war in the camp. And he said it is not the voice of that shout for mastery, meaning that they have overcome their enemies. Neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome. So it's not a cry that they're being overcome by their enemies, but the noise of them that sing I do hear. So that kind of singing was quite something, that Yahweh thought that there was war going on in the camp. That's how boisterous they were. Clamorous. Empty vessels making a lot of noise, but not saying anything. Verse 19, and it came to pass as soon as he came near unto the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Mashah's anger waxed hot. He was angry. And he cast the tablets out of his hand and broke them beneath the mountain. Why did he do that? Because they broke the covenant. You break one, you break them all. And they broke 4 at one go. So Mashah just exemplified what they had done. You broke the covenant and you broke the law. The 4 of the laws. 20, and he took the calf which they had made and burnt it in the fire and ground it to powder. And he ground it to powder and strew it upon the water and made the children of Yashraal drink it. He destroyed the calf, and the very thing that they made, the very thing that they worshipped, he destroyed it, and then he ground it to powder and put it in water and made them drink. They drank the gods that they thought brought them out of Matzorah. Verse 21, and Mashah said unto Ahawaran, what did this people unto you that you brought so great a sin upon them? And Ahawaran said, let not the anger of my Adawan, my master, wax hot. You know the people that they are set on mischief. Yes, we all know that, and you knew that too, but you still relented. You didn't even argue against them. Verse 23, for they said unto me, make us gods that shall go before us, for this Mashah, the man that brought us up out of the land of Matzorah, and we do not know what is become of him. Now, instead of him being the leader over the 12 tribes, say to them, hang on, folks, he's coming back soon. No, he did not say that. Verse 24, and I said unto them, whosoever has any gold, let them break it off. He that was supposed to be the teacher, to teach them the law, he was the one who instructed them to bring the gold. So they gave me. Then I cast it into the fire, and there came out this calf. So now he's lying. He didn't just throw the gold into the fire and the calf came out. No. What he did is that he took the gold, molded, and used tools to fashion the calf. Let me see if I can find that scripture. There it is. Verse 4, and he received them at their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool after he had made it a molten calf. He molded it and fashioned it to make it into a calf. And here he's saying, I cast it into the fire. This is verse 24. I cast it into the fire and there came out this calf. So this calf magically stepped out of the fire. He didn't do anything else but take the gold and throw it in, and this calf came out. He's lying. Verse 25, and when Masha saw the people were naked, for Ahawaran had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies. Right? He even encouraged them to be naked. Verse 26, then Masha stood at the gate of the camp and said, who is on Yahweh's side? Let him come unto me. And all the sons of Lawai gathered themselves unto him. And I believe at this point that Ahawaran was repentive in his heart, because the whole tribe of Lawai came to Masha's side. Verse 27, and he said unto them, thus saith Yahweh al-Hayam ol Yashrael, that is Yahweh al-Hayam of Yashrael, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. So that was what the tribe of Lawai had to do. They had to get their swords and start killing. And the people that they killed, I believe, were the ones who gave the gold onto Ahawaran to make the golden calf. And the children of Lawai did according to the word of Masha, and there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. For Masha had said, consecrate yourselves today to Yahweh, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. Now, did they receive a blessing? That didn't look like a blessing. That doesn't sound like a blessing to me. Verse 30. And it came to pass, actually the blessing would have been to receive the 10 laws, the 10 commandments written in stone. That would have been their blessing if they had hung in there and waited for Masha. But no, they received what? Punishment. Verse 30, and it came to pass on the morrow, the next day, that Masha said unto the people, you have sinned a great sin. Yes, they did. They broke 5 laws out of the 10. And now I will go up unto Yahweh, peradventure I will make an atonement for your sin. No, Masha got to go and stand in the gap for these people, including Ahawaran, because he was the instigator. He was the one who actually made the idol. Verse 31, and Masha returned unto Yahweh and said, oh, this people have sinned a great sin and have made them gods of gold. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray to you, out of your book which you have written. So Masha's putting his life on the platter, putting his life in place of the people. He said, if you're going to blot them out, blot me out. Verse 33, and Yahweh said unto Masha, whosoever have sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. You see, he's not going to forget, you know. He is keeping careful record of everything that we do and don't do, everything that we say and we don't say, according to his instructions. He's keeping record. And he kept record of these people. He didn't want to kill them off all at one time. No, he didn't, because then the people, the nations around them would say, well, he brought them into the wilderness to kill them off. There. Let's move on. Verse 34, therefore now go and lead the people unto the place of which I have spoken unto you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. His angel, why is in capital letter, is Hamashiach, who came in the form of a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. Fire at night, cloud by day shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. You see, he's going to come back for a reckoning. He's going to remember, and he's going to come back for a reckoning about these people and what they've done. They're not going to get off with just an apology. Verse 35, and Yahweh plagued the people because they made the calf which Ahawaran made. That's why they all died out in the wilderness. That was part of the reason why. Not only were there whining, complaining people, but the very first goal that they got, the very first opportunity that they got, they built a golden calf. That calf was hiding in their hearts. They brought it with them from Matzarayim. That's why they could not go up to the mountain. Psalm 106, verse 19 to 20. And they made a calf in Horeb and worshipped the molten image. Thus they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox that eats grass. They could see the mountain still shaking, the mountain with fire and smoke and the rumblings. So they know there's still something going on. Masha didn't just disappear. But because they have this desire, this insane desire to worship the calf that was already in their hearts so that they can frolic and have their little orgies. Because that calf gives them permission to do those things, running around naked. That was the reason why they wanted a golden calf. So that they can do whatever they felt the desire to do, whatever lust was leading them to do. And that's why a lot of people today cannot worship Yahweh Alahayam, because of the idolatry that's in their hearts. Now we're going to look at the book of Yashar, book of Jasher, chapter 82 from 20 to 37. And there died of the people by the swords of each about 3,000 men. Now this is the historical book from the Apocrypha, and this will give you a deeper insight as to what happened when Masha came down and found the people was reveling and worshiping the golden calf. So there died of the people by the swords of each other about 3,000 men who made the calf. They were the ones who contributed the gold to make the calf. Verse 21. The next morning, Masha said to the people, I will go up to Yahweh, perhaps I may make atonement for your sins, which you have sinned against Yahweh. And Masha again went up to Yahweh, and he remained with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. So he had to do it all over again. Verse 23, and during the 40 days, Masha entreated Yahweh on behalf of the children of Yashrael, and Yahweh listened to the prayer of Masha, and Yahweh was begged of him on behalf of Yashrael. He pleaded, he supplicated on behalf of these wicked people. Verse 24, then spoke Yahweh to Masha to cut out 2 stone tablets and to bring them up to Yahweh. So now he has to go and cut them out himself because he broke the first 2. I mean, he rightfully broke them because they were the ones who broke the Yashrael, was the 12 tribes of Yashrael broke, or the children of Yashrael, because I can't say it was all 12 tribes, because the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Lewi, they were the ones who sided with Masha to destroy these 3,000 men, with the exception of Ahawaran. Right? He could have been slaughtered too. But thankfully, the Most High was a very merciful Alahayam. But one thing he did do, Ahawaran, even though he turned and he became a righteous man, he was never able to go into the land of Yashrael. He did not see the land of Yashrael. He did not see the promised land. Because The Father said, I will visit their sin upon them. And that was his sin that was revisited. And so the Most High said, you're not coming into my land. I will use you for the 40 years, but you're not coming into my land. Did he not do the same thing with Masha when Masha struck the rock when he was supposed to speak to it to get the water to come out? He is very serious. It's just that we don't see how serious he is. And we think that he is slack and that he is weak. But it is not slackness or weakness. It is mercy and patience, long suffering. That he does not strike out against us today, like he did with our forefathers. And yet, when he struck out against them, they still didn't learn their lesson. So with us, who are, to me, tantamount worse than our forefathers, if he kept striking us down, there'd be none of us left. Let's move on. Verse 25. Masha did so, and he came down and fashioned the 2 tablets and went up to Mount Sinai to Yahweh, and Yahweh wrote the 10 commandments on the stone, on the tablets. Masha remained yet with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights, and Yahweh instructed him in standards and judgments to give Yashrael. Verse 27. Yahweh commanded him respecting the children of Yashrael, that they should make a sanctuary that his name might rest therein. He was still merciful to say, I want to still dwell amongst them. Isn't he an awesome father? And Yahweh showed him the likeness of all the vessels. And at the end of the 40 days, Masha came down from the mount, and the 2 tablets were in his hand. Verse 29. And Masha came to the children of Yashrael and spoke to them all the words of Yahweh, and he taught them laws, rules, and judgments which Yahweh had taught him. Masha told the children of Yashrael the word of Yahweh, that a sanctuary should be made for him to dwell among the children of Yashrael. And the people rejoiced greatly at all the good which Yahweh had spoken to them through Masha. And they said, we will do all that Yahweh has spoken to them. You see, at this point, until Masha came back, they were sitting on eggshells. They didn't know if the rest of them were going to be slaughtered. They saw 3,000 of their brethren being slaughtered. And at this point, they did not know if the Most High was going to send Masha back with a message to slaughter the rest of them. So when Masha came back with the 2 tablets with the laws and all the different instructions, then their hearts rejoiced. Then their hearts rejoiced. Verse 32. And the people rose up like one man, and they made generous offerings to the sanctuary of Yahweh. Each man brought the offering of Yahweh for the work of the sanctuary for all its service. Now imagine, Masha didn't tell them to bring the work, to bring the stuff. No, he didn't tell them. They came to a place where they were repentive. And the Father's mercy upon them was shown when he moved their hearts to give a generous offering. That's why I could never understand why these leaders in these ministries and churches and wherever else have to beg people to give. The reason why people are not giving is because the Spirit has not moved them to give. And the Spirit isn't moving them to give because the Spirit is not with you. The Spirit is against you. I've heard it over and over again. As a matter of fact, I was in this, it was a praise and worship type concert. And they had, these fanciful speakers from different places. And there was this popular singer that was, he was the highlight. And as a matter of fact, when they advertised I don't want to call it, it wasn't really a concert. Well, let's call it concert. They call it, I forgot the title of it. It was something to do with the Holy Ghost. But they had they had all these different musicians and singers and speakers. And the main musician was a popular singer. The main singer, the main attraction was this singer that is well known amongst the churches. Very well known. So he was placed first on the advertisement, right? Either on the posters or whether on the Christian radio stations. His name, his music, everything came up. So you felt that this was his concert that he was giving. Needless to say, when I arrived, he was first as the focus point of the advertisement, but he was the last that sang. And he sang for 10 seconds. I'm not joking. Anyways, throughout the service, there were men, with their bow ties and whatnot, with their fancy talking and their fancy suits and whatnot, coming out, and they want people to give. This one man, we'll never forget him. He was from Africa. And he was wearing this bow tie and speaking so eloquently, telling people that they can purchase a blessing for $240. They can purchase a blessing that will come to pass in 24 hours for $240. The entire room went quiet. We had a good few thousand people there because people came to see this singer, this man. And this was long before I was awakened, by the way. And $240 for a blessing in 24 hours, the whole room went quiet. So this man kind of chuckled, say, "What's wrong with you people? Look at you pastors. Look at the shoes on your feet. You want to tell me that you can't afford $240? So what they did is all the leadership from the churches, they put them up front. Everyone else sat behind. So he's looking at the pastors now who are all dolled up, thinking, well, if you can afford those clothes, you can afford $240 for a blessing. And again, the place was quiet. He said, how about $60? You can afford $60. Well, one or two people stood up. Right? But this is the thing that I'm saying to you. If this meeting, if this time of worship was ordained by the Most High, there's no way that he would have to try to solicit funds, solicit money from the people and try to guilt them into giving. I give not a penny. Even if I had it, I wouldn't have given it. And I'm sure a lot of people felt the same way too because we were duped. Yes, the concert or whatever they called it was free. You didn't have to pay anything to come in. But they had expected people would give and have a big offering, which they in turn would divide up amongst themselves. And I could not believe that this sort of thing was going on. Anyways, when the Most High is in it, he will move the hearts of people to do what he needs, what he wants done in his sanctuary, what he wants done in the midst of his people. Verse 33. Okay, let me finish 32. And each man brought the offering of Yahweh for the work of the sanctuary and for all its service. Verse 33, all the people of Yashraal brought each man of all that was found in his possession for the work of the sanctuary of Yahweh. They brought gold and silver and brass and everything that was serviceable for the sanctuary. They kept bringing things. 34, all the wise men who were practiced in work came and made the sanctuary of Yahweh according to all that Yahweh had commanded, every man in the work in which he had skill. He raised up artisans. Masha didn't even have to go through a pattern to show them what to do. The Most High did it himself. All the wise men in heart made the sanctuary and its furniture and all the vessels for the holy service as Yahweh had commanded Masha. So he commanded Masha, but then he also instructed the people himself. He worked on their hearts. He gave them an idea in their minds what they needed to do, and he gave them the skills. Verse 35, and the work of the sanctuary of the tabernacle was completed at the end of 5 months. The children of Yashraal did all that Yahweh had commanded Masha, and they brought the sanctuary and all its furniture to Masha, like to the representation which Yahweh had shown to Masha. So did the children of Yashraal. And Masha saw the work, and behold, they did it as Yahweh had commanded him. So Masha blessed them. So now they received the blessing. You see, when they are listening to the Most High, and they are walking in his instructions and obeying his commandments, they are now able to receive his blessings. And that's the same thing for us today. You see, we want the sweeties, but we don't want to obey the Father. We want the Father to bestow blessings upon us, but we don't want to obey him. How's that going to work? How is that going to work? If a regular father, an earthly father, and when his child disobeys him and he punishes him because he loves him, right? If he does that, how much more would the Heavenly Father do the same to us? Only a foolish parent will give a child rewards for their bad behavior. And I've seen it. And you know what? The child becomes even worse. But the Father understands you don't reward a child because of its bad behavior. You reward it when it is behaving, when it's obedient. So he does the same thing with us. And the reason why he chastises us is because he loves us. When you don't feel the chastisement and you can do anything your mind wants you to do, anything the devil tells you to do, you are in a very dark, sad place. You're heading straight for the lake of fire. And I kid you not. The book of Shalawam, the book of Exodus, chapter 36. This is the final scripture. I'm coming on to the ending of part 4. And we're going to start at verse 3. And they received of Masha all the offering which the children of Yashraal had brought for the work of the service of the sanctuary to make it. And they brought unto him free offerings every morning. Every morning they used to bring him stuff. And all the wise men that brought all the work of the sanctuary came every man from his work which they made. And they spoke unto Masha, saying, the people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which Yahweh commanded to make. And Masha gave commandment, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying, let neither man nor woman make any more work for the offering of the sanctuary. Stop bringing stuff, guys. We have enough. So the people were restrained from bringing. Now this is when the Spirit is moving amongst us. We give. We give without ceasing. Verse 7, for the stuff they had was sufficient for all the work to make it, and it was too much, as a matter of fact. So he says, stop. So this is the ending of part 4, but not the ending of looking at what is the old covenant and what is the new covenant. It is a big lesson. So I have to break it up in pieces to make it more palatable. Well, that's not the right word. Sorry. To make it more absorbable, right? Because first of all, the internet that I have is very slow and it keeps breaking down and I have to keep starting over and over and over again. So having a video that's over 2 hours long, it makes it more difficult to upload to YouTube. So for that reason. Secondly, for you to be able to listen for at least an hour or so to a lesson without having to listen to 3, 4, 5 hours of a lesson, it could get very laborious. It can weigh heavily because it is very intense stuff, right? This is intense teaching. And thirdly, for me, to put forward this lesson, to teach this lesson, it takes a lot spiritually. And there is warfare that goes on when you are trying to lead the people his people in the correct path. Satan doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. So to keep it short and crisp is my point, is my plan and my purpose. And the next lesson will continue, part 5. I think there are 7 parts to this lesson. It's a big lesson. It is quite big because we're talking about the covenant, and it's not something to be taken lightly. And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it again, that Yahweh Al-Hayam is one of covenant. And he is wanting to be in covenant with his people, and he will only regather those who are in covenant with him. Not any other nation, only us, his people, starting with the southern kingdom first. And if you are not in covenant with him, upholding his laws, his statutes, his commandments, and his judgments, if you're not walking in them and obeying them, then you are not in covenant with him. You are a Gentile. And for that reason, you're placing yourself in two dangerous positions. One, you become, if you try to uphold anything else, you're new bottle with old wine, because the old wine will be the old covenant. And the problem with the old covenant, we don't have a tabernacle anymore. We don't have a priesthood anymore. You need blood. And you need a high priest. And none of those things exist right now, except in Hamashiach. And unless you come to Hamashiach and you accept him as your savior, you are lost and doomed for destruction. Second thing, you will be facing the wrath of the Most High. Right now, those who do not receive Hamashiach as their savior and apply the blood that he shed on the stake to atone them, so that they can be cloaked in his righteousness. Thereby we're able to walk in his commandments and be able to maintain our covenant with Yahweh. Until we do these things, we are still acting like Gentiles. We will still be Gentiles. And the wrath of the Most High will come upon us. And this is the reason why I'm doing this lesson, and I'm going through it painstakingly, verse by verse, scripture by scripture, precept upon precept, line upon line, right? So that you can see where I'm taking my information from, where I'm getting the word from. This is not me, Hadassah Bathsai 1, telling you these things out of my own heart and out of my own mind. This is what the Spirit is speaking to me and through me from His Word, from the Word of Elohim. That's all. You can go to the scriptures and pray and ask Him to show you. And He will show you. And He will direct you. If your heart is serious about learning and wanting to know. But some of us say, yeah, I'm going to go. But as soon as He tells you and confirms to you, you stand back. Just like our forefathers. Instead of drawing near and be provoked to righteousness, you stand back because you are offended. Right? This doesn't suit me, and this does not suit my lifestyle. So I will be offended and I will stand back, and hopefully He will change His mind. Well, the Most High, He's not going to change His mind. No, He's not. Like I said, He is the potter, we are the clay. He sets the rules, we obey. Hallelujah. Praises to the Most High. So stay tuned for part 5 of our covenant, and we will continue looking at the old covenant and the new covenant. Shalawam, shalawam. Praises to the Most High. Abba Yah.